Hi friends, today I'm going to share the story Frog and Toad Together. This is a story by Arnold Lobel, and if you look at the cover of our book, there's a special little symbol right here. That's an award. It's like a medal saying that it received the Newbery Award, which means it's a really good children's story. And that was from a long time ago, 1973. That's almost 50 years ago. And it's still here, so that means it is a really good book. So this story is Frog and Toad Together. And when you look, there is a table of contents. Now we've gone over that some in class. A table of contents means that it tells you what actually is in here and in the story. There could be chapters, there could be little stories, and it tells you where it is. So this table of contents has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 little stories in this book. So the first one is called A List. Then we have The Garden. Then Cookies. The next one is Dragons and Giants. And the last one is The Dream. So we'll start with A List. One morning, Toad sat in bed. "I have many things to do," he said. "I will write them all down on a list so that I can remember them." Toad wrote on a piece of paper, "A list of things to do today." Then he wrote, "Wake up." "Oh, I have done that," said Toad, and he crossed it out. Just like that. Then Toad wrote other things on the paper. A list of things to do today. Wake up, eat breakfast, get dressed, go to Frog's house, take walk with Frog, eat lunch, take nap, play games with Frog, eat supper, go to sleep. "There," said Toad, "now my day is all written down." He got out of bed and had something to eat. Then Toad crossed out, "Eat breakfast." Toad took his clothes out of the closet and put them on. Then he got his paper and crossed out, "Get dressed." Toad put the list back in his pocket. He opened the door and walked out into the morning. Soon Toad was at Frog's front door. Again he took the list out of his pocket and crossed out, "Go to Frog's house." Toad knocked at the door. "Hello," said Frog. "Look at my list of things to do today," said Toad. "Oh," said Frog, "that is very nice." Toad said, "My list tells me that we will go for a walk." "Oh, all right," said Frog. "I am ready." Frog and Toad went on a long walk. Then Toad took the list from his pocket again. Guess what he did? Yep, crossed out, "Take walk with Frog." But just then, there was a strong wind. It blew the list right out of Toad's hand, and that list blew high up into the air. "Help!" cried Toad. "My list is blowing away. What will I do without my list?" "Hurry," said Frog. "We will run and catch it." "Oh no," shouted Toad. "I cannot do that." "Why not?" asked Frog. "Because," wailed Toad, "running after my list is not one of the things that I wrote on my list of things to do." Frog ran after the list. He ran over hills and swamps, but the list blew on and on. At last, Frog came back to Toad. "I am so sorry," gasped Frog, "but I could not catch your list." "Blah," said Toad. "I cannot remember any of the things that were on my list of things to do. I will just have to sit here and do nothing," said Toad. Toad sat and did nothing. Frog sat with him. Let's see if we can remember any. After he took a walk, I think he was supposed to eat lunch, maybe take a nap, maybe play some games. Let's see if he remembers. Well, after a long time of sitting, Frog said, "Toad, it is getting dark. We should be going to sleep now." "Go to sleep," shouted Toad. "That was the last thing on my list." Toad wrote on the ground with a stick, "Go to sleep," and then he crossed it out. "There," said Toad, "now my day is all crossed out." "I am glad," said Frog. Then Frog and Toad went right to sleep. They didn't even bother to go home. Okay, our second story in our book is called The Garden. Frog was in his garden. Toad came walking by. "What a fine garden you have, Frog," he said. "Yes," said Frog, "it is very nice." "Oh, but it was a lot of hard work." "I wish I had a garden," said Toad. "Well, here are some flower seeds. Plant them in the ground," said Frog, "and soon you will have a garden." "How soon?" asked Toad. "Quite soon," said Frog. Toad ran home. He planted the flower seeds. "Now, seeds," said Toad, "start growing." Toad walked up and down a few times. The seeds still did not start to grow. Toad put his head closer to the ground and said loudly, "Now, seeds, start growing." Toad looked at the ground again. The seeds did not start to grow. Toad put his head very close to the ground and shouted, "Now, seeds, start growing." Frog came running up the path. "What is all this noise?" he asked. "My seeds will not grow," said Toad. "Well, you're shouting too much," said Frog. "The poor seeds are afraid to grow." "My seeds are afraid to grow?" asked Toad. "Of course," said Frog. "Leave them alone for a few days. Let the sun shine on them. Let the rain fall on them. Soon your seeds will start to grow." Remember, that is what seeds need to grow. They need some sun, they need some rain, and they need some space and some air. That Frog is pretty smart, isn't he? That night, Toad looked out of his window. "Drat," said Toad, "my seeds have not started to grow. They must be afraid of the dark." Toad went out to his garden with some candles. "I will read the seeds a story," said Toad. "Then they will not be afraid." So Toad read a long story to his seeds. All the next day, Toad sang songs to his seeds. And look, it's raining. That's a good thing. And all the next day, Toad read poems to his seeds. And the next day, Toad played music for his seeds. Toad looked at the ground. The seeds still did not grow. "What shall I do?" cried Toad. "These must be the most frightened seeds in the whole world." Then Toad felt very tired from all that hard work, and he fell asleep. "Toad, Toad, wake up," said Frog. "Look at your garden." Toad looked at his garden. Little green plants were coming up out of the ground. "At last," shouted Toad, "my seeds have stopped being afraid to grow." "And now you will have a nice garden too," said Frog. "Yes," said Toad, "but you were right, Frog. It was very hard work." Okay, that was our second story. Now we're going to start the next one. It's called Cookies. Somebody's making cookies, I think. Toad baked some cookies. "These cookies smell very good," said Toad. So he ate one. "And they taste even better," he said. Toad ran to Frog's house. "Frog, Frog," cried Toad, "taste these cookies that I have made." Frog ate one of the cookies. These are the best cookies I have ever eaten," Frog said. Frog and Toad ate many cookies. One after another. "You know, Toad," said Frog with his mouth full, "I think we should stop eating. We will soon be sick." "You are right," said Toad. "Let us eat one last cookie and then we will stop." Frog and Toad ate one last cookie. There were still many cookies left in the bowl. "Frog," said Toad, "let us eat one very last cookie and then we will stop." Frog and Toad ate one very last cookie. "We must stop eating," cried Toad as he ate yet another cookie. "Yes," said Frog, reaching for a cookie, "we need willpower." "What is willpower?" asked Toad. "Willpower is trying very hard not to do something that you really want to do," said Frog. "You mean like trying not to eat all of these cookies?" asked Toad. "Right," said Frog. Frog put the cookies in a box. "There," he said, "now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can open the box," said Toad. "That's true," said Frog. So Frog tied some string around the box. "There," he said, "now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can cut the string and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. So Frog got a ladder. He put the box up on a high shelf. "There," said Frog, "now we will not eat any more cookies." "But we can climb the ladder and take that box down from the shelf, cut that string, and open the box," said Toad. "That is true," said Frog. So Frog climbed that ladder, took the box down from the shelf. He cut the string and opened the box. Do you think they're going to eat them? Then Frog took that box outside. He shouts it in a loud voice, "Hey birds, here are cookies!" Birds came from everywhere. They picked up all the cookies in their beaks and flew away. "Now we have no more cookies to eat," said Toad sadly. "Not even one." "Yes," said Frog, "but we have lots and lots of willpower." "Well, you may keep all that, Frog," said Toad. "I'm going home now to bake a cake." I wonder who will eat the cake and who will have the willpower not to eat the cake. Think about that. Okay, our next story is called Dragons and Giants. Frog and Toad were reading a book together. "The people in this book are very brave," said Toad. "They fight dragons and giants, and they are never afraid." "I wonder if we are brave," said Frog. Frog and Toad looked into a mirror. "Well, we look brave," said Frog. "Yes, but are we brave?" asked Toad. Frog and Toad went outside. "We can try to climb this mountain," said Frog. "That should tell us if we are brave." Frog went leaping over rocks, and Toad came puffing up behind him. They came to a dark cave. A big snake came out of the cave. "Hello, lunch," said the snake when he saw Frog and Toad. He opened his wide mouth. Frog and Toad jumped away. Toad was shaking. "I am not afraid," he cried. And remember, that snake is a predator. And Frog and Toad would be his prey. But they got away. They climbed higher, and they heard a loud noise. Many large stones were rolling down the mountain. "It's an avalanche!" cried Toad. Frog and Toad jumped away. Frog was trembling. I am not afraid," he shouted. They came to the top of the mountain. The shadow of a hawk fell over them. Frog and Toad jumped under a rock. The hawk flew away. Remember, another predator, and they were his prey. "We are not afraid!" screamed Frog and Toad at the same time. Then they ran down that mountain very fast. They ran past the place where they saw the avalanche. They ran past the place where they saw the snake. They ran all the way to Toad's house. "Frog, I am glad to have a brave friend like you," said Toad. He jumped into bed and pulled the covers over his head. "And I am so happy to know a brave person like you, Toad," said Frog. He jumped into the closet and shut the door. Toad stayed in bed and Frog stayed in the closet. They stayed there for a very long time, just feeling very brave together. Pretty cool story, huh? They found out they were pretty brave. Okay, the last story is called The Dream. Toad was asleep and he was having a dream. He was on a stage and he was wearing a costume. Toad looked out into the dark. Frog was sitting in the theater. A strange voice from far away said, "Presenting the greatest toad in all the world." Toad took a deep bow. Frog looked smaller as he shouted, "Hooray for Toad!" "Toad will now play the piano very well," said that strange voice. Toad played the piano and he did not miss a note. "Frog!" cried Toad, "can you play the piano like this?" "No," said Frog. It seemed to Toad that Frog looked even smaller. "Toad will now walk on a high wire and he will not fall down," said that strange voice. Toad walked on that high wire. "Frog!" cried Toad, "can you do tricks like this?" "No," peeped Frog, who looked very small to Toad. "Toad will now dance and he will be wonderful," said that voice. "Frog, can you be as wonderful as this?" asked Toad as he danced all over the stage. But there was no answer. Toad looked out into the theater. Frog was so tiny that he could not be seen or heard. "Frog," said Toad, "where are you?" There was still no answer. "Frog, Frog, what have I done?" Then the voice said, "The greatest Toad will now—" "Be quiet!" screamed Toad. "Frog, Frog, where have you gone?" Toad was spinning in the dark. "Come back, Frog," he shouted. "I will be lonely without you." "I am right here," said Frog. Frog was standing near Toad's bed. "Wake up, Toad," he said. "Frog, Frog, is that really you?" asked Toad. "Well, of course it's me," said Frog. "And are you your own right size now?" asked Toad. "Well, yes, I think so," said Frog. Toad looked at the sunshine coming through the window. "Oh, Frog," he said, "I am so glad you came over." "I always come over," said Frog. Then Frog and Toad ate a big breakfast, and after that they spent a fine long day together. The end. I think we can say Frog and Toad truly are best friends, and the adventures that they have together are things that friends do. Thanks, friends. I'll read to you again soon.